But anyway, the advice continues for this first desolation. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. Now, wait a minute. That's not what's going on in the Great Tribulation. They're just getting crunched. No, they're led away captive to all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Now here we have a huge, huge issue. First of all, it's clear, as you've been up till now, then, that what Luke is focusing on is a desolation of Jerusalem that's before the beginning of sorrows and all those signs. What we have in front of us are two desolations of Jerusalem. One before all those signs, that's what Luke is talking about. That did happen in 70 AD. And a final great tribulation that occurs later. There's two different desolations in view here. But Luke also says, Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles till the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. This has got a lot of people very excited. There was a lot of excitement when the state of Israel was reborn. Just as the Old Testament, can a nation be born in a day? It was. In May 14th of 1948. And there were many people that tried to set dates. Gee, one generation from that, call it 40 years, that would be 1988. And we had all those books, and a guy by the name of Wisenant, was convinced that Christ was coming back because of that understanding here. Well, when that didn't happen, so gee, maybe the real duration here is not the nation Israel, it is the city of Jerusalem. And in June of 1967, as a result of the Six-Day War, Jerusalem's now, for the first time in 2,000 years, under the Star of David. That's kind of exciting. So a lot of people are starting to count from there. Well, you say, gee, if a generation's 38 years, and if you say Jerusalem isn't trodden down by the Gentiles since June of 1967, you add 38 to 67, you get an interesting year. This one. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting that's correct. I'm just saying that's where some people are getting excited. Because one can validly argue Jerusalem is still trodden down by the Gentiles. It's still, we do not have, Israel is unable to get the nations to put their embassies there. They call it their capital. It's under dispute. It's still contested. And that's why we watch that with great interest. But there's another issue that lurks behind this that's still indeterminate. What is the trigger for that generation? I'll come back to that before we finish. Jesus says, verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. Is that the same generation that Matthew was talking about? Not sure. Let's get back. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. Take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and the cares of this life, so that that day come upon you unawares. For as a snare shall it come upon all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Now that's a phrase we want to be alert to. In the book of Revelation, in that book very clearly there is a distinction between those that are saved and those that dwell on the earth. The earth dwellers in the book of Revelation are the losers. They're the ones that get wiped out. They're the ones that lose. It's interesting that in the book of Revelation, the only celebration as characterized by exchange of gifts and so forth, is when the two witnesses finally die. And the earth dwellers cheer that these two troublemakers are finally off their back. And for 3 days they lay in the streets until on CNN or whatever they get resurrected. That should catch everyone's attention. But as you read the book of Revelation, you want to be sensitive to the fact that there are the Lord's own and the earth dwellers. You and I are not earth dwellers. We may be here, but we're pilgrims. We look for a city whose maker is God. And so the earth dwellers, and I suspect that's exactly what's saying here, for as a snare it shall come up all them that dwell upon the face of the earth. If you're earth dwellers, you want to have a very light touch as we pass through here. And then verse 36, watch ye therefore, and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Well, wait a minute. How can they escape these things? And if they do escape, they're going to stand before the Son of Man? What is he talking about here? One of the things that we'll discover, incidentally, as we go here, in the next few verses, is that this didn't even occur on the Mount of Olives. Let's go on here a little bit. We had the beginning of sorrows, the false Christ, wars, famines, pestilence, and earthquakes. And these were collectively labeled by Matthew the beginning of sorrows, but the end is not yet, he says. Both accounts, both Matthew and Luke, allude to this cosmic upheaval group, with the sun, the moon, the stars, and so forth. And Matthew has it in verses 10 to 13. Luke has it in verse 25 and following. And Revelation, of course, deals with that after downstream a bit. Remember when we were talking about these things back in verse 11, great earthquakes shall be in divers places, famines, pestilence, and fearful sights, and great signs shall be from heaven. Then we have this strange passage by Luke. But before all these, everything Luke's talked about is before the beginning of sorrows. There's a different emphasis, at least, between where Luke says, but before all these, and Matthew says just the opposite. All these are the beginning of sorrows, then shall they. What the dividing, the watershed issue are the false Christ, wars, famines, and earthquakes. Luke clearly focuses his attention on that which occurs before those signs. Matthew clearly focuses virtually all his remarks on that occur after those. So they certainly have a different emphasis. One says before these things, and the other one says then shall they, or is another way of saying after these things. Same equivalent thought.